everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you the art doll that I made for the Art Doll Club I'm in on Facebook. And this is Jackie P. Neal's group, and she invited me a while back. This is the third time that I've participated. It's basically a one-on-one swap with someone in the group, and you send them your doll and they send you one back. So for this month, the month of October 2018, it was dress up because it's Halloween, and it could be a costume, it could be whatever. So the first thing that I do when I'm creating one of these articulated paper dolls is I take a piece of heavy 140-pound watercolor paper and I cover it on both sides, collage style, with papers that are the color of Caucasian skin, basically. Someday I'll make one that's not Caucasian, but so far they've all been Caucasian. That is some pattern tissue from, sewing patterns, some old text, some scrapbooking paper that has, script text on it, and then also some handmade paper that has some would look like Asian symbols of some sort printed on it. So I covered both sides of the cardstock, and then now I'm kind of unifying the colors using a little bit of white gesso mixed with some portrait pink acrylic paint just to give it a little bit of a pink tinge. So then I have some pattern pieces that I have made previously because this, like I said, this is the third time I've made one of these dolls, and I basically make them the same. I will put the links to the other two videos in the iCard or on the end screen somewhere. So I took a pencil, I drew all those little shapes onto the cardstock and then cut them out. And this one is fully articulated. Its head moves. It has shoulders and elbows and wrists that move. It has hips, knees, and ankles that move. So it's several pieces. Then the next thing that I did was to take some coral colored ink and go around all the edges, because I don't like that when there's like 3 layers of paper there and the core of the watercolor paper is showing. It's white. So I like to make a sponge edge around the pieces. So I did that to all the pieces. And then as I was doing that, I also took my Stabilo all graphic pencil, graphite, it's gray basically, and filled in some of the features of the body, and then blended that into shadows with a water tank brush. So just to kind of make the features on the body, because otherwise it would just be blank. It would look weird to me. So I want it to look, it's still a paper doll, but I want it to look as realistic as possible. And that's just my preference. Some people might think this is gross or whatever. This particular pattern is the pleasingly plump, I guess you would say. I don't know. It's the heavier version of the doll. I think it looks more realistic to what people really look like. The original pattern that I had, which I will link in the description box below, to where I got the original pattern that is much smaller, and I've since modified it quite a bit. It was very Barbie doll-like. Big on the top, skinny little waist, and I just don't think that, don't like that. I don't think it's how people look. So I modified it right away. First I made it bigger because I think it's easier to work with a larger scale because it was tiny. And then I modified it to have a normal waist and smaller top and whatever. And then this one I modified again to make it have a rounder abdomen and I don't know, a rounder face and bigger thighs, bigger, what's the top part of your arm? I can't think of it right now. Anyway, I think it's realistic, a lot more realistic. So Now I'm taking a very tiny punch and punching holes, and then I'm using this time some powder coated pink mini brads. I found these in my stash. They're from Stampin' Up. I don't know how long I've had them, but they matched because I used that portrait pink in the white, and also then I sponged it with coral. This one is very pinky tinged skin, so the pink brads worked really well for this one. So just putting all the pieces together and making sure that everything is attached to every other piece. The head bone connects to the neck bone connects to the shoulder bone, you know, like that. So as you can see, I'm working at a time that I don't normally work in my studio because the sun keeps shining onto my desk, and I tried to block it, and I need like a roll down. What are those things called? Blackout shade. I need a roll down blackout shade so that I can work in the afternoon, because that afternoon sun just comes in the window, shines right on my desk. But I needed to get this done and in the mail because I was going to travel the next day, and it had to be done and in the mail. So I just kept working. I got interrupted a lot of times. This was a lot. It was a long process, obviously, because there's a lot of details and pieces and parts to it. And actually, the finishing part at the end did not get filmed, so I apologize for that. People kept interrupting me, and I forgot to turn the camera on when I finished the doll. So now I'm adding some more shadows, like under the knees and under the arms, where and on the sides, you know, where your tummy comes in, where your hips are, but your tummy's a little bit heavy, so it's not, you know, all those little shadows. And I'm still using that Stabilo all graphite gray pencil to do that. And then a few highlights here and there where light would hit, like the chin and the ears, and, you know, making the belly button look sunk in by putting it a deeper color in the center and a lighter color on the outside. Fingernails, toenails, that type of stuff. And I'm using a white Posca pen for that. Then I start in on the face, and I'm just using my regular soft leaded metallic, what is this called? Mechanical pencil. I'm tired, people, and stressed. But mechanical pencil. I like to draw with this. I put a soft lead into it so that it's easy to draw with. It's a graphite. And I can draw these small little features on the doll. And then I also have my white eraser to erase. So it makes it easy. Just to make sure everything's balanced, all the pieces and parts are there. Everything's even. So then I'm getting out some Spectrum Noir alcohol markers to just finish in some of the coloring. I'm testing them out. The thing about Spectrum Noir markers is that what's on the end of the marker doesn't reflect what the color is really at all, really. So I always have to test them every time. But I'm using a few of them, and I don't know which ones they are. They're all from the same pink range family, but I don't know like which numbers I picked. But I'm adding blush to the cheeks, adding a little bit of color to the lips, and, you know, putting in the shading and the shadowing. The alcohol marker picks up the graphite because the graphite is water soluble, so it does blend it a little bit, which doesn't bother me. I'm also adding some white Posca pen, lightening the centers of the eyes and adding highlights on the nose and things like that. It's the same process that I would do making any face or portrait, whimsical face or portrait. Same thing that you see me do. It's just on a very, very tiny scale. And I often will use Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons to do this, but I decided to just go with the alcohol markers today because it was quick and easy. And then I'm taking a, I think this might be a Uniball maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a very fine permanent black marker, you know, very fine tip, and filling in the details of the face. And some of the other body areas, I'm going ahead in with the black lines, like where the fingers separate and the nails and the toenails and all that type of stuff, belly button, so that they're on there more, you know, like normal. Then I start adding in a little bit more color to the face. The other stuff has had a chance to dry. Of course, the alcohol marker is picking up the permanent pen, which I didn't think about, but it works fine. Add some blue to her eyes and some pupils, and then some highlights, a little bit more sponging, just to give her a face, you know. She needs a face. So there you have it, a bald doll. I bet you know what the next step is going to be, to put her hair on. She needs her hair. Does not look right. I'm using a water brush and a little bit of the Posca pen ink from the white Posca pen to just add a few more highlights. This is fussing. I do this fussing quite a bit when I'm doing faces. It's like layers of fussing. It's just what happens. But I do get it to a point eventually where I'm happy. So I finished that. Yeah, more highlights. Just can't stop myself. It's that white Posca pen. It calls to me. But by the time I'm done, it looks fairly dimensional. It's adding in some more shadows a little bit with the Stabilo gray pencil. Yeah, I think she looks good. She's good. Time to be done. Time to get some hair. Hurry up. Get some hair. I'm just not getting there, am I? So the video here is like 24 minutes, which is 4 minutes longer than I normally do. But I had all the footage that I intended to take. It would have had to been split into two parts, probably two 20-minute videos. And you know what happens when I do that. People watch the first video and they don't watch the second video. So it's a conundrum. Not sure. But I guess I was saved from the conundrum by the fact that I did not turn the camera on at the end. So now I'm getting out some different painty papers. These are gel printed papers using different methods. That one's got stenciling on it. There's some that have the powder technique. There's some that have, that orange one is actually printed with fruit, using fruit as a stamp. But basically I'm just looking for color, and I'm going to give her green hair. So I found these kind of olivey, interesting colored shapes inside those circles, and I cut them out to make the hair because I liked the variety of colors and patterns that were in that gel print. Just the green part, not the other parts, just the green part. So I start by making the back part of the hair. On my art dolls, the backs have the same details as the front. So that's something that kind of bugs me on a regular paper doll that you would find little girls playing with. It has those little tabs, and the whole back is basically just nothing, and then you see the tabs, and that I don't like that. So I make mine so that if you turn the doll over, it is the same as if you had looked at it on the front. So that's just kind of some detail-oriented stuff that happens in my world. So I attach the back of the hair first, so that is glued to the back of the head, and then I will glue hair over the front as well. So there is the fringe or the bangs, whichever you call it. But I didn't have a big enough piece to make it go all the way down. So I'm adding strands, and I would have added strands anyway because it adds more dimensionality, so that you can really tell that it's like hanks of hair hanging in the front, and it's been cut into a fringe over her eyes. So I'm gluing that all together with tacky, Alien's tacky glue. Nothing fancy. Just gluing the little strands down around her face and going up into the part, area. And I did take a little piece off of a different piece of paper as well because I didn't think I would have enough with those little circles from the centers of that one print. So it's one of the baby powder technique ones, and it has kind of copper and green in it as well. So just building up the hair around her face. This type of detail stuff is what I think makes the finished product more interesting than if I just slapped a solid piece on there. It wouldn't be as interesting as putting these strands and these different colors and different papers. I like the way that looks. I like to do this type of a paper painting type style collage with different patterns and colors, which make it look maybe more chaotic, but more interesting to me. So that's why I do it. Then I'm just cutting these little curved strand pieces and gluing them over the top. And I'll do that on the back of the head as well, to kind of break up the monotony of the hair. Why did I put green hair? Well, she's going to be a pumpkin girl, so I think a pumpkin girl would have green hair. Is it natural or is it dyed? I don't know. You decide. More strands in the fringe, or bangs, whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's do the back. Add a few to the back. All right. Now she has hair. Naked doll with hair. Now we need to make her some clothes. We're going to start with her dress. So, I guess I add some shadows and pen marks and things like that into the hair, and some highlights with white Posca pen, of course. You would have never guessed I would use a white Posca pen. I know, you're surprised. I should buy stock in that Posca company. I think the name is Uni. Okay, so now I have a piece of, another piece of watercolor paper. And I draw with a pencil the shape of her body, basically trace the shape of her body. And then I'm drawing a pumpkin shape over my drawing so that I can get the shape of what the dress is going to be. Shape of a pumpkin. So, when I was pregnant with my kid, I was invited to an adult Halloween party. And I was ridiculously pregnant at the time. So I sewed myself a pumpkin costume that looks like this. With the hat and everything. Had a little hat with a stem on the top. And I wore that to the Halloween party. And so that is what is kind of inspiring. You know, when you say Halloween dress up, that was my first adult Halloween party and my first costume I ever sewed myself. And I still have it. I haven't worn it, but I still have it. It's comical. And maybe a little bit embarrassing. So now I'm doing the paper painting pumpkin part. Say that 3 times fast. Lots of P's there. I've picked different gel print colors in rusts and oranges and coppery colors, and I'm going to glue these on in the what are the things called on the pumpkin? You know, it's not flat, it's bumpy, it's got those ribs. Ribs, that's probably what it's called, I bet. I'll betcha. So I'm making the ribs out of these different papers. And I'm going to collage them onto my little pieces that I cut out. Nothing fancy, just little different shapes and patterns because that's how I like it. One of these is the front and the other one's the back. Like I said, I like to have my design wrap all the way around the back of the doll, so if you flip the doll over, it doesn't just have little tabs in a white back. So now I'm attaching these using some Liquitex matte gel medium to my cutout pattern pieces that are going to form the dress with the different ribs. Now this process is also what I did with the boots and the hat. I basically made a front and a back, and I collaged on the papers in the same way. And then for the boots and the hat, I just glued the edges so that it's like a pocket, like it slides right over the doll, slides on, slides off very easily by just having a pocket, by just gluing the very, very edges of the two pieces together. The dress was more complicated. I couldn't just glue it into a pocket because I wouldn't be able to slide it over the doll because of the narrowness at the top and the bottom. That's not going to work. I did actually cover the inside as well of the dress with this plain orange paper. That's the one that's been gel printed with using, I think it was an orange in the paint to make designs. I wasn't originally going to do that, but the part that I glued the paper over on the back side showed my drawing. So here I am drawing out how I'm going to make the boots just by tracing the foot, exactly the same process as when I traced the body and drew the pumpkin over it, tracing the foot and the leg and drawing the boot over it so that, you know, I'll get the shape right. Same thing I did with the hat. I traced the top of her head and then drew outside the, outside the line into like an upside down cup shape to make the hat, made a front and back, covered it with paper. It was all the same process. So you really didn't miss much of what was not at the end. It's the same thing over and over, just different shapes. So then I'm trimming out the dress. I'm going to punch holes in the top shoulder area and tie the dress on with some ribbon, some, olive covered ribbon. And then I did end up putting some Velcro dots as well on the sides and the bottom of the dress to keep it on, keep it in position because it kept wanting to slide. I was planning on just tying it on. I also ended up taking some organza ribbon and making a tutu because it looked so weird at the end. At the end it was just weird, like at the bottom of the pumpkin. And I added some beads around the neck and some sequins, things like that, stick-on. I guess they were gems, stick-on gems. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. The close-ups are coming, and this is pretty much the end of the video. Thanks. Bye-bye.